I haven't got anything written down for this one, but the idea is I talk about it and maybe writes down as I go. Um, I've got um, my tablet with some searches. Um, I'm looking at options for what I can do now, and I've got limited funds. So what I've read um, in Body Keeps the Score, Van der Kolk talks about um, um, those who do the work themselves really succeed. So I know I have to, and I've been advised that I shouldn't do this alone. So I have to try and see what aspects I can do with um, professionals somehow. So I see my psychologist every 6 weeks, and I call trauma counselors wherever I need, and that's usually once every few weeks. And there was a time there where I was calling them every week. I don't know, for a couple of months. Um, I I've read maybe 6 books in the last few months. I don't know exactly how many, and I've just bought 4 books. 3 specifically on trauma. One's vagus nerve exercises. Um, I'm currently reading a book on somatic therapy, and I've got a second book on somatic therapy, which I'm going to read straight afterwards. So, um, and I've read 2 books on polyvagal theory already. I need to read more on it, and I think the books I bought are going to be very crucial. Um, they were books that were advised to me from the trauma center, and I think I need to combine what I can do myself, um, as well as intensive therapy. But see, I don't have insurance. I don't have money, so I have to do this mostly myself. I can afford the budget I have currently for psychologists, and I have a good relationship with my psychologist, and I'd like to keep um, working with him. I I had this idea to, and I've been thinking about this for a while, and I've processed a lot in the last 4 months. I have done it through um, talk therapy, and it's mostly going through the trauma and explaining how upset I am, and trying to let go and move past it. And that has worked in a lot of ways. Um, I'm not getting flashbacks like I used to. I'm self-isolating, so I'm not getting trauma triggers like I used to. Um, so I need to um, more social engagement to test out those aspects, because um, you don't really know how much it's worked if you're not socially engaging, because that's when the triggers occur. So I've studied mindfulness and I've done a mindfulness course, and I want to actually be a mindfulness teacher. Um, in the next 6 months, that'll hopefully be something I do. Um, but what it's done for me is profound, in the fact that I can re-regulate pretty rapidly. So if I really do deep dive in um, polyvagal exercises, and I combine that with mindfulness, um, and extend that with DBT therapy, which I can do with my psychologist. I've got to speak to him about this, but um, there's other options for DBT where I can do some courses in it. Um, I'm limited in a lot of factors, so money's a big factor. So I looked up. I did a search before um, on costs for EMDR, and so I'm open to EMDR, but like it's apparently doesn't work so much for complex post-traumatic stress disorder. It works more for post-traumatic stress disorder. Um, so I'm open to EMDR, but that's as an example. That's one therapy, and that is, I'm looking at the cost, $2,000 to start, and that's for an intensive. Um, that's for 6 hours over within 10 days, or usually 3 days with 2 hour sessions. Um, that's a lot of money to spend on something that's not necessarily going to work. Um, um, I'm just looking up intensive somatic therapy. See, it, um, that's one of the things that's basically you have trauma centers that have intensive or um, options for um, combined therapies. So yeah, it's not cheap. Somatic practitioners cost a lot of money. So um, I just did a search, and yeah, no. Uh, Fair enough. It's especially um, if it's using technology and stuff like that. So $6,000 for a treatment plan. That's okay if you've got insurance. So I don't have insurance. I do have an idea though, and it's based on like reframing therapy. Essentially, uh, the benefits that I've gotten so far from the psychotherapy aspect, which is, I guess, part of DBT, is has been really beneficial. Like I said, I am not having the flashbacks I used to, so I'm not getting stuck in triggered trauma responses that last, and physically, like, I did go through it all earlier in the year, and I had many years of it already. So after I went through my sort of life crisis last year, there was a period where um, it was a different trauma was introduced, so it alleviated the background, um, but it didn't do anything to do. It didn't do anything to do to actually treat the underlying causation, which was the complex trauma. So I need to address that. I need to work out how to do it. And so I'm reading the books. I've read, I think, 6 books so far. I'm almost finished another one. Um, and I've got 6 books on my tablet and phone to read, plus I've got the library system. So I need to read these books and just get that under control. There's an Australian therapy centre called, I didn't realize there was someone in the chat. Lashna, how you going there? What are you trying to figure out? AI, sir? Reframing, be careful. Yeah, I know. The number one book, Torah, but full agreements help. Yeah. Well, religion helps for some people, you know. I sort of joked about this with a friend of mine yesterday. I said, because I had this idea that I wanted to do reframing by here's my idea, and I haven't run it by my psychologist yet. I spoke to someone about it today, and his advice was, you have to do this work with someone, and so I need to talk to my air helps all people, and that is spirit. Yeah, definitely. Well, breathing, absolutely, mindfulness, breathing, and pranayama. Like, I'm learning polyvagal breathing techniques. I'm right into that, you know. But what I have to do is really work on, because there's so much, but I have processed so much already. So I'm in a good position. So as we're speaking, I'm actually going through thinking about multiple traumas and reading my nervous system as I'm doing it, and I'm checking to see if there's any response, and I'm not getting any. I'm still yeah, that's it, let it go. Exactly. and I've essentially that has helped and it has worked. That's how I've managed to get to this point, is doing that. And so um, talk therapy, disclosure, having a safe environment, whether it's been trauma counselors or my psychologist, and working through each particular trauma, sometimes a couple of times, and letting it go. And I had the negative result where I had done that and then it came back again. So I thought I'd done that, and I guess I didn't properly let go. MJG's here. How you going, MJ? How you going? So I'm talking about what options I have for therapy. Awesome. You're listening. And I've been looking up options. And so far, EMDR's $2,000 to start. Somatic therapy might be like much more than that for an intensive. So someone said in the chat recently they had 6 months worth of intensive trauma therapy and it really worked for them. That is really awesome. And I would love that. So I also have the other thing of geographical problems. So I would rather go to a center that was out in away from the city and spend a week and do intensive work. That's big money. That's really big money to do that, and I understand what it costs. So my dream is to make that available one day for people for virtually no cost. My idea for reframing is for me to go through everything and I spoke to a trauma counselor about this today and they said yes, this could work. I spoke to a psychologist friend who said be very careful, you have to work with other people about this stuff. And I totally agree. We can start with the Brahma and Upanishads. Yeah, I do need to. I do. One of the books I did buy was a book on samadhi, and I think there's 3 books in the series. So I'll buy the other 2 books and I'll read them by like some famous Swami that was in San Francisco or something at the university. I forget his name, but I will follow down that path. Dance, yes. Well, I do. I've been doing a little bit of shaking therapy, so going walking and shaking while I'm walking, ecstatically walking. I've been doing balance therapy, so there's 2 videos on my YouTube of me walking along logs on the ground out in the bush. You know, if I did that every day for months, that would be a big thing. So that's like a somatic therapy that doesn't cost any money. And because I'm so unfit, you can see in the video how I used to be able to balance really well. And when I lost all my fitness, I lost my ability to balance. So they're all things I can do myself, you know. So Um, Books like, specifically in Body Keeps the Score, it's a great example because um, he goes through um, structured therapy in all its different forms, um, and that's done through trauma centers that specialize in it. And yeah, I am too still. I am, but that's like samadhi. That I can be. I'm still, but inside it's ecstatic. So I can be ecstatic and still inside. Um, so um, so that my options are I've got to speak to my psychologist, and my next appointment's not for 5 weeks away. Um, I could probably send an email, ask a few questions, because it would be in relation to this idea I have, and that is to go through everything, um, from earliest memories to 18 years old. Don't worry, I won't go any further than that. I'll stop at that, and then process the adult traumas separately at a later date. Um, but just go through everything. And this is my idea of how I can do it, is to, that's all. You need to know that you are real and everything else is unreal. That's a good comment. Lashna. Yeah, I'm saying it right, Lashna. Yeah. Yeah, that's it. And that's a good way to look at it, is to focus on yourself. And that's a perfect comment too, because my idea is to go through everything, but write it down, but put it, place it in a different place, like a different country, and change it. So scenes don't, like, everything's exact except the names and the set and the places are changed. About that, I'd feel safe to do. So with reframing and structure therapy, um, I wouldn't change, like I wouldn't change the things that matter, but it would, so it has to be, but it wouldn't be, I'd be separating myself from it, if that makes sense. So I would disassociate myself from everything, and then that way I can then go back through what I've written and reprocess it as if it was someone else. And then when I've done that, I then take the material and either burn it, or like it's a, say it's a book, I've written it in a book. I take the book and I put it in a bucket of water, or I rip up all the pages in a bucket of water and turn it into paper pulp, or I go bury it, and something symbolic. Um, we have to stand up soon, fellow dissociative brother. Thank you. Yeah, I will. It's things are much better now compared to where where I was. I'm not getting the flashbacks. I'm able to think about most of it without getting trauma responses. I still am having difficulties where, say, maybe I don't know how often, at least once a week, I'll, which is better than what it was. It used to be daily, or constant. Um, Things will build up. So that happened to me last week. I became agitated, and then so my um, answer to that was to do a stream about negative experiences. Hold up, hey on the dead when they see us that have seen the dead. That's an interesting comment. Um, I'll have to think about that while I'm continuing what I'm talking about, because that's very interesting, and that's what I love about these chats. We talk about just all different stuff, and so I've got a blank page. I want to put stuff down. So EMDR, we're looking at $1,500 to $2,000. Somatic therapy, we're looking at $5,000 or $6,000. So with the somatic therapy, again, I'm looking at learning how as much as I can do myself. If I can read more books on it and practice the practices, I can do that work myself. And like you were saying, Lashna, is that shake it out, dance, do those things. And so as we're going into summer, so I'll be able to start going for swims, and that's good polyvagal exercise, and if I combine enough things, so I've got EMDR, DBT. I can do free courses, and then also I've already done mindfulness course, so I just keep doing that. And I can look at incorporating that more into what I do with my psychologist. But there are courses in it that I can do. So going back to Body Keeps the Score, he goes through all the different therapies. Like you got neurofeedback. There's body therapy, like somatic therapy. I could go get body work done on me, and also do body work that's free. So go do the balance work myself, go shake it out and dance and ecstatically do all that stuff. But and mindful walking as well, slow walking and that. Um, but they talk about rolfing, which intense massage. I have touch sensitivity where I'm afraid, like I flinch when people touch me. Um, so it's not like I'm afraid to get a massage, but I'll, I'm open to that. So I'll write that down, rolfing. And the book I just read, um, Accessing the Power of the Vagus Nerve, was written by someone who specializes in doing body work. And, rolfing was a big aspect to curing people or healing people. Um, that won't be cheap. I can look it up. So, same thing with sexual healing. Like, that's not cheap at all. Sex therapists are very expensive. Um, but that's I'm not in a hurry for that. I'm more more important is to deal with the underlying bulk of the traumas that have the ongoing thing, and then deal with them. So I'm looking at rolfing. So it's actually affordable. 160 bucks it's saying here for a 90-minute session. And so people say it's life changing. So we got rolfing certainly in the picture. And I've never had a proper massage in my entire life. Apparently, I'm really good at giving massages from the few people that I've given massages. Um, that's some interesting comments. So you must have an interesting job, Lashna. So um, that's an interesting comment. All of the words made no sense, and I'm okay with that. That's all right. Words don't have to make sense. They can be mishmash and jumbled around, and sometimes that can be okay. You can find clarity through um, confusion. So um, that makes sense to me. Ashna says, I'm lost in USA Dharma. Um, I think there is, I think it's worldwide. There is an epidemic of um, I think it's 1 in 4 people have got complex trauma, and as a society worldwide, you know, um, society itself is going in the wrong direction. So it's causing people to be stuck or sick. So rolfing's on the cards. I might even do that soon. Like totally. I'm, you know, I've never had a proper massage in my entire life. Um, so that might be something I do. In fact, that might be the first thing I do on the list, even before my next psychologist appointment. But what I'll do is, yeah, I'll write down here email. So I'll email my psychologist about my idea, and then maybe make a proposal of how long it would take. So my idea is to write down everything, but separate myself from it. So it's I'm a different person. It's a different country. It's a different location, different people. The names are all different, and that gives me the freedom to not change anything about. So reframing it in a different way. Um, so I get to say everything through because it's anonymous essentially. It's an anonymity of so in the past, um, we need to write down, but it, yeah, we need to write down all, but it different. That's it. So, and that's why I don't know. It's this is an idea I've got, and I don't know. I'd like to actually, I might even not just email my psychologist, maybe put this question to um, people who are doing research. Maybe they might help fund it. I had positive feedback as to the idea because once I'd written everything, I could then read it all and then I can let go of it. And that's similar to what I've done already with disclosure and um, talk therapy, um, especially one that I did. Uh, um, it was in September, I think. So I went through 2 traumas and I went into great detail and I didn't hold back. I was very angry about everything. So as I was going through the traumas, I was referencing how I felt at the time, and how I felt afterwards, and how it affected me. and how angry I was and upset I was at all the people involved. And then so I recorded it, and then after I'd done the session where I recorded it, that same afternoon, I listened to it, and because it was recorded in high quality audio, I was listening back in high quality audio. That's a major aspect to it. So I closed my eyes, and then it was really clear what I was listening to, and I could actually hear myself. And then it did process it, although I am still very angry about particularly one of the two traumas that I processed that day. But it was, I believe that they were processed. Um, but because overall it's all still there, and I want to deal with it all for good now. Um, Things like pharmacological methods and ECT are inhumane, I believe, especially ECT. I want to treat the underlying aspects and then have them dealt with so that they don't re-emerge later. So once they're dealt with fully. Actually, you got the funniest comments. I want to know what is your favorite color on drugs? That's classic. And that my part of my idea for this reframing was to actually assign, like reservoir dogs, assign colors for every different person. So replace everyone's name with a color or colors, you know. And and then I thought about, does that interfere with this, how we have color associations on the subconscious? Um, and so rolfing is definitely on the cards, maybe in the next month. I don't have enough money at the moment to do it in the next 2 weeks, but definitely in the next month, I'm going to do rolfing. So I'm going to put that number one on the list. So I've got a list started. I haven't written down the reframing. Also, I've got to finish reading all the books I've got. So if I read one book a week, 1.5 books a week, I'll get through all the ones. How you going, Sky? It's good to see you here. Well, that's it. I'm working it out. I figure I've come up with an idea of something I want to do, and it's somewhat experimental, but it's based on processing that stuff that's worked for me already. But I want to actually put it all together and do it um, a bulk lot, sort of like an intensive therapy. So something that might take it might take me 6 weeks to write everything down, and then I go through the process of reading everything I've written, and then at the end of it, I take all the paperwork and burn it or bury it or turn it into pulp, get rid of it, destroy it, let it become part of it, make compost out of it. That'd be something I could do. Turn it into pulp and mix it in with compost and then grow some plants from it. Um, I made sculptures out of paper concrete, like paper mache, but with concrete. So I could make a sculpture or a bunch of tiles and use the material that I had for the reframing. So once I've finished with the process, it's gone. So no copies are kept. If you understand what I'm saying, like, so I process it and it's gone. So it's um, I'm going to talk to some experts about this, especially my psychologist, and how we could go about doing it, how many sessions it might take with them. I think it could work. It's very similar to that method I said before, where I had a session where I recorded it, and then straight afterwards I listened to it and I processed it a second time, listening to myself. So that day after that, I basically fell into a deep, deep sleep and slept for 12 hours. Um, so I do need. I'm really interested in trying this method. I think it could work, and the counsellor today said, like they often get people writing things down and preparing it, and then calling up, and then going through what they've written down, which is essentially what. Awesome, thank you, Sky. You know, I'm on a budget. I'm trying to do this for the cheapest thing. So um, the we don't have, like, once you look at intensive therapy, you're looking at multiple thousands of dollars, and that's why somatic. It says here, yeah, $6,000 for a decent package. So if you include on top of somatic therapy psychoanalysis and like other ongoing, you know, you could be spending 15, 20 grand. And someone was in the chat the other day that said that she had 6 months of intensive therapy and it really worked for her. And that's awesome, you know. Um, and that may have been 2 sessions a week or 3 sessions a week and multiple things, you know. Guy says, I'm going to sleep soon. I have an early shift tomorrow. Take care. Thanks for being here, Sky. I'll keep you updated on what I work out. I'm trying to work out what I can do for the price, you know. So I'm definitely doing Rolfing. Sky, if you're still here, Rolfing is like intense massage where they really almost hurt you with the pressure and the like shiatsu, or there's other massage that's similar, but it's on number 1 on the list. So I'm going to be doing that I think in the next month. So I'll refine the search. Yeah, I'll find a place. So like I said, I just bought a book on vagal nerve exercises, and it was only $20, and it's pretty good book from what I've flicked through. So it's got lots of good diagrams, but it also has lots of exercises, which is what I want. A book that's got lots of exercises. Thanks, Sky, for being here. Take care of yourself, and look forward to seeing you next time. So EMDR is an option as well. You know, it's not that expensive. It's $1,500. I used to make noise music, which was like my own neurofeedback. So saying here, neurofeedback's 135 per session, which is fair enough. You can actually buy neurofeedback tech and do it at home, you know. So it used to cost a lot of money to do this stuff. Like you'd have to have expensive computer and all the equipment, but now it's possible to buy equipment yourself. So I used to make noise music, which is my own version of neurofeedback. So you'd be making complex oscillating modulation, and you'll be finding sweet spots, and so it's similar, but it's not the same as clinical stuff. But it might even be better to be doing the artistic version. So says here, if this is in a different state, Um, yeah, it's not cheap. One place is saying, oh, you can hire. You can hire. So okay, so you have to hire a device for a month, but it costs you $300 a week. So we're looking at minute 1200 to do hire. So to hire a neurofeedback will cost you $1,200. You could probably buy the equipment for around the same price too. Now, I don't know, maybe not. So anything like that, if you're going to spend money on something, if it's not going to work, it's money wasted. So that's why they, but again, what I'm saying is that technologies come down in price. Um, that's an option. Um, Again, going back to the advice for instance, in Body Keeps the Score, is that the best results come from people who have the bottom up approach of doing the work themselves. So they read the books. They're getting help through professionals, but they're also doing the work themselves. But what I'm talking about is somehow getting some intensive therapy. And I keep going back to this reframing. So I'm going to make that number two, as reframing as number two, because if I can do this with help from um, my psychologist, to do it with them, um, and this is something sort of experimental, because my concept is to um, traditionally, like, the reframing is done with changing the way you feel about things, reprogramming your mind in a way. So my idea with this is to not actually change anything, be as accurate to all discrete down to the fine details, but I separate myself from the actual place. So it's deliberate dissociation, or um, deliberate disassociation. Um, and so the reframing is different in that aspect. So you're not looking back at the things and trying to see them differently. You're completely separating yourself as if it was someone else's life, in a whole different place, different country, um, different environment, but everything else has to stay exactly the same. So I'm not trying to change how I feel about things, and I guess what I need to learn about in working out if this is a possible option is how I actually go about the narrative or the writing. Um, do I split it up into? Well, I think essentially make it all first person, but then have um, sections or blocks which are descriptive from either a introspective or a retrospective or a contemplative perspective. So a great example is a big part of trauma for me is the mystery of why and what were the other people thinking. Um, how did it affect them? So possibly I could have essentially like you have someone doing a memoir, but it's in the first person, but then they have paragraphs which are introspective or reflective or recapitulation of things. So separating out the different modes of inserted paragraphs could serve a purpose. Um, other therapies such as social engagement, like doing yoga and theatre. So yeah, in the last polyvagal theory book I read, yoga was a really probably to me the standout chapter out of the whole book, Polyvagal Safety. The book's called Polyvagal Safety, and it was really interesting to me because it was basically drawing the parallels that nothing's new. It was already known, and for thousands of years, and that the core aspects to yoga are already stretching, posture, breathing, reading the body as well, reading the body and the mind. Um, um, Acting therapy was a big chapter in Body Keeps the Score. That's out of I can't do that. My anxiety is too much, and I make these YouTube videos where I go out into the bush and I read poetry that I wrote and stuff. So I'm already sort of doing that, but I'm doing that on my own. I'm not doing it. The whole point of the therapy is that um, you're forced to take on roles and get out of your comfort zone. So there's lots of things going on with that. Um, so for me, I've got the somatic therapy here is $6,000, but like I'll write down DIY somatic therapy, and that would cost nothing. So I'll put that down as 3 on the list because I'm already doing it at least once a week so far, um, with the balance training. But I've already got plans to do more. Um, the book I'm almost finished, and I got another book on somatic therapy, and I just bought the vagal nerve exercise book, which will be somatic therapy. So if I could develop my own somatic therapy regime that fits with what I do, that doesn't cost me money. This is a big thing. So that's going to have $0. All it will cost will be the fuel to drive somewhere. Um, I'm just trying to think, like, what other, you know, like it's not like, I mean, this is the thing, it's out of reach for most people. So it's saying here $400 for neurotherapy sessions, but okay, package of 10 costs 800. 15 sessions cost 1200. So you could either spend $1,200 and hire the machine for a month, or you could get 15 sessions for $1,200. I need to look more into that, you know. Um, There you go. So you can rent or buy. Yeah, they're $10,000. That's why the price is still out of reach. You'd think that they would be down in the sub. When you can have like an Apple Watch that's like got all the sensors in it, you'd think by now, but it's just the way it is. So um, yeah, it's I'm searching the internet while streaming on the internet. I'm not the first person to do that. Basically, yeah, it's saying here, 10 grand US. But basically, you could probably build your own for a lot less. Um, that's just through a big company. You Again, you don't want to buy something that's not going to work. So that's why they cost. So what's Amazon selling them for? A couple of $100. So that's an option. I wouldn't want to buy some basic device. That I would rather have something that connects to a computer and is software driven. So they've got ones that connect to your phone. how effective are they compared to going to a clinic where they've got proper machines. So I would say that the $1,200 is it. The research shows that it does work, and it works for so many different conditions as well. I will put that 4 on the list because it's decent. It's a lot of money still. It's probably the highest amount. That's why it's getting more expensive as I go along. I'm guessing that this reframing idea I have would require 10 visits to a psychologist, maybe. And so it is going to be expensive. Um, and so that's trying to do 2 years. That's trying to do 2 years of your life each session. So we'll say $3,000. And that would be over a period of time too, a couple of months. But the thing is, I think for something like that, it needs to be done intensively. It needs to be done over several weeks. So you might spend 2 or 3 months writing everything down, and then you go through it all in one go. Or I don't think it would work doing it year by year, because you'll get halfway along and be like, oh, I forgot about this, and now it's too late. Now we're here. Like, it wouldn't work. It's by working on the everything, and then making sure you've got everything, and then going through the processing of it. So there's a lot of time involved with that. So the time is all the time spent sitting with a pen and paper, writing it down, or typing it up on a computer or something. And that's why changing the location is a safety thing. It would make it's the only way it could happen. So far I've done processing where I just say, I'm not going to say the name of the person. I'm not going to say that, you know. So it's essentially the same thing, but it's changing it by keeping that. It's an idea I've got, and I want to see if it'll work. Um, so the DBT therapy I can do courses in it for free, or I could integrate it with my psychologist appointments. I'm already doing it with mindfulness. So I like the idea of learning, training, qualifications. So possibly doing courses in it. So I'll say DBT. So I've added in now additionals. So we've got 1A, 1B, 2A, 2B. Um, because it's complicated, because I think EMDR, I wouldn't risk spending the money on it. So I'll put that last. When I was a courier driver, I used to always make the last one Z. So I know that it does work for a lot of people, but apparently it doesn't work so much for complex trauma. So there's two options for the neurofeedback. You can hire a device, $1,200. You can do sessions worth $1,200. So I will put down buy neurofeedback. That could be a really great thing. There's an option there with that. MJG says, hi and bye, Luke. See you next time I get visit. Take care. Enjoy nature. Thank you. Thanks for being here. You know, I hope I haven't been rambling too much, MJG. Like, I've really worked out some stuff here. I've really, actually, by sitting here and talking through this, I've really worked out what I can do and what's possible, you know. I really think that it's number one on the list is rolfing. That's something I'll do in the next month. And 1B is read all the books that I've already got, plus the ones I can get from the library, but just the ones I already own. I've got 6 books sitting there ready to read. 2 on the list is reframing with a psychologist, which I estimate at $3,000. 2B on the list is DBT therapy, and that can be, I don't really have a price there because there are courses in it. I'd actually prefer to study it and then get qualifications. So I know that there's free. Yeah, so we're looking, yeah, $600, $700, 400, 500. There's ones for $200, but I would say the $600. I'll say $600. Because I'd like to do a course and then actually have qualifications from it. Because I already got mindfulness qualifications and that's why that's 2B. Um, 3 on the list is do-it-yourself somatic therapy, which is I've got a 0 cost. Um, and I've got the somatic therapy package as last on the list as well, because it's just out of my price range. So I have to look at just learning. Um, so number 4 on the list is hire a neurofeedback machine or go and do 10 visits or whatever. $1,200 is your minimum. And 4B would be buy a device for $300. And I would probably take the risk. Maybe not. Maybe do some sessions and not get a package and then buy something. Essentially, and that's a point that's made in the books, is that neurofeedback, like a lot of things with computers, used to be really expensive and you couldn't buy devices. Now there's devices for a couple of $100, and there's software available. So for a fraction of the price of hiring one, I could buy something and then continue to use it. It's something that certainly has massive effects and can, within several sessions, people have had massive results from it. And not just trauma, like for ASD and other conditions. But essentially, doing meditation and mindfulness is also neurofeedback. So you don't want to be doubling up on things. That's why I keep going back to this reframing. I think that's essential. That's the psychotherapy aspect. And I think my idea that I have, it has 3 parts. So first is writing everything down, feeling comfortable because you've changed the names and places of everything. Going through the psychotherapy with it, and then going through a process of letting go by taking all the paper material and burning it, or turning it into pulp and making compost out of it, or making a sculpture out of it, using it as a material in a sculpture or something. So there's a symbolic aspect to the reframing. And that has, to me, that's the most important thing. And that's why I did the stream tonight, because I think that's something I want to try. I think I need to do the other things as well, along with that. So certainly that's why I've got number one on the list is rolfing. It's something I can do in the next few weeks. You know, um, so I'm going to email my psychologist. I'm also maybe going to somehow get the question out there to people doing trauma research. Like, what do you think about this idea? Would it work? I think it'd work if you've got the right structure for it. But like I was said, the feedback I got today was you have to go into it wholeheartedly and really make sure that it's really going to do. Like, if you don't go in with that intention that you're really focusing on making sure that it's going to happen, that you really are letting go, but you're doing it in a whole you're fully doing it, and then you focus on afterwards that you've got a life and you're living afterwards. That's your reason for doing it. It has to be. Otherwise, why do it? It's not going to work. And that's something that um, I hear so much is there's so many, and this is in the books, like there's so many methods. Not everything works for everyone. Often people go through various modalities of therapy and fail with several before one works for them. And that it is individual. So, in a sense, you have to test things out. I've had good results from um, processing through talk therapy, anger therapy, like I said with that when I did that recording. I'm still angry and upset about it, but I'm more at ease about it. I really wish there was resolution. I can't get resolution from it. And that's what makes you so upset, is that you can't get resolution. So you have to try and resolve it yourself in whichever possible way, however you can do it. I've got a list. So thank you for listening to me go through this stuff. Um, this is the contemplative process, So I've made a list. I've made priorities. So essentially, it's 1 to 5, and I've got 1A, 1B, 2A, 2B, 3, because there's no 3B, and then 4B, 4A and 4B, and then the most expensive stuff, which I'm not considering. Um, not necessarily the most expensive. So EMDR is $1,500, but I would rather. It's still at the end of the list, and so the two at the end of the list are EMDR at $1,500 and somatic therapy package at $6,000. So that's the somatic therapy package is out of price range. EMDR is within the price range, but I would actually pick many other things first. So, you know, the beauty of the list too is the fact that I might want to do all of the things on the list up until the most expensive stuff. So I'll maybe do all of this stuff. Especially the DBT is only $600 to do a course, and do it yourself somatic therapy is free. I've already got books on it. It's only your time. I'm actually pleased at what I've come up with today, and I didn't have to do too much internet searching sitting here with the tablet. I was able to sort of look at it and go, well, this. The other thing too is with the reframing idea I've got, it's going to take months to write everything down, and it's going to then take a month maybe of once a week sessions, or 2 months of no. I think it needs to be done quicker than that. I think you need 2 sessions a week or 3 sessions a week, really. Either way, it's going to cost $3,000, and a lot of time's involved to actually produce the material. So I need to email my psychologist and maybe email a few, find out who's doing this stuff, see what they think. You know, I think it would be, I think it'll work. And I'm going to do all of the things on the list there anyway, eventually. So thank you for being here. I'll go through the list quickly again. Number 1 on the list is rolfing. I'm going to do that in the next month. At least 1 session, maybe 2 sessions before the end of the year. I've never had a massage in my life. So this is going to be an experience. 1B is read all the books I've got. I've got 6 books that I own that are trauma, polyvagal, and somatic healing, mostly trauma research and techniques. So I've got 6 books to read. Number 2 on the list is the reframing idea, which will be $3,000, which will take several months. And I need to see whether it's a viable option. 3 on the list would be DIY somatic therapy, and really that could be, I could start that tomorrow, really, but I can't really. I need to finish reading the books, so I'm almost finished one, and then I've read one vagus nerve book. I just bought one, and I'm almost finished another one, and I've got another one to read. So I think I need at least 5 books under my belt before I can start doing the DIY stuff with that. And then, but I'm already doing balance training and stuff like that, and shaking it out, running around in the bush. Yeah, so. And a DBT course that gives me qualifications, which will add to my mindfulness stuff. So thanks everyone for listening. I'll finish. 4 is hire a neurofeedback machine or do sessions, $1,200. 4B is buy a neurofeedback machine, which is only $300. Maybe I should just buy one for $300, and because the technology's gotten there. But again, it could be crap compared to actually going and getting proper stuff done. So that's why I've put it further down the list. And then at the end of the list is EMDR and a somatic therapy package. So I've worked through a lot today. Thank you for being here. I've appreciated everyone being here. Thank you.